Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. It's springtime. A lot of us are now getting out and planting our gardens, hoping for a bumper crop of potatoes or petunias, tomatoes, or tulips. But for Box Elder County, they are hoping for a bumper crop, and they are making plans too. The difference is, this bumper crop doesn't have roots and leaves, it has feet and wings. It is the greater sage grouse. Now, the greater sage grouse is an iconic landmark or part of the high desert. And it is a beautiful bird to look at, albeit a little bit awkward. Now, the greater sage grouse can continue to be that icon, or it can become our spotted owl. It depends upon how we handle the management of its habitat. And that is what counties, states, and federal agencies have been teaming together to figure out. Because an endangered species listing on this bird would be catastrophic to the rural economies of Utah. So let me introduce you to the bird itself and how it functions in the wild. Here's a report from Derek Dowsett as he introduces you to the sage grouse.
These birds have learned to come to a particular area, like the old gymnasium for the sock hop, and they've learned to display and show their aggression and dominance and so forth, and the hens come to the lek to watch the males dancing and displaying and determine who's going to get lucky.
And the importance of a sage grouse getting lucky may be more important than you think, because the sage grouse has been petitioned for a listing as a threatened species by the year 2015.
The sage grouse is really important to the ecosystem because they're a great indicator of how we as people are managing the landscape. One of the biggest things for sage grouse is habitat loss, both the amount of habitat available and the quality of the habitat that's available. There's no single one factor that's caused the decline for sage grouse. It's a whole variety of factors all coming together, and a lot of those are man-made factors. Roads, agriculture, housing, alterations to the landscape that all come together to essentially chip away at the available habitat for sage grouse.
You have a lot of fire that burns out in West Box Elder County, and when you have fires, you lose sage grouse habitat, you lose sagebrush, but then oftentimes that comes back as cheatgrass, and once it comes back to cheatgrass, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to bring sagebrush back.
The sage grouse must have sagebrush in order to exist. So that's the single most important factor for sage grouse habitat. They're also what we call a landscape species, which means they need large areas of sagebrush habitat. And by large, I mean greater than 15 square miles, and in some cases, maybe even hundreds of square miles, to fulfill their life requirements throughout the year.
The scope of sagebrush habitat is a major concern to leaders in rural communities where the possibility of a threatened species designation of sage grouse could forever change the landscape of the West.
This could be the most devastating issue in the rural areas of the West. Everywhere there's sagebrush could be an area that is eliminated from use for agriculture, mining, timber, oil and gas, hunting, recreation. We have already seen the tip of that occurring in Elko County, and we don't like it.
With the possibility of a threatened listing for sage grouse looming, federal and state land managers, along with a number of other people who would be affected by a listing across the West, have been involved in planning efforts. Recently, these efforts have come to fruition with an introduction of a sage grouse plan in Box Elder County, along with state plans from both Wyoming and Utah.
What you're looking at with Box Elder County is exactly, I think, what the service is looking for in terms of on-the-ground implementation. It addresses the threats to sage grouse. It allows for expansion of the populations and protections of some of those habitats while still allowing for on-the-ground uses.
With the varying threats to sage grouse across the state, the important part of these plans is they involve the local working groups. Utah's own plan focuses on protecting 93% of the existing sage grouse populations in the state, while also taking into account the local communities.
If it's not good for the local communities, it's not good for the wildlife. Don't just put out one document with the one-size-shoe-fits-all, because it's not going to work locally. And if it's not going to work locally, then you're going to have pushback, and you're not going to have support of the local county commissions, the permittees, the landowners, the local people. If you can work with them and get them on board, that works a lot better.
When the governor created his Sage Grouse Working Group, he charged that group with coming up with a plan that would protect the birds, conserve the sage grouse populations, but also allow for continued development and robust opportunities for communities.
Outside of the planning meetings, a group from the Wild About Birds Nature Center has come together in Rich County to help sage grouse with a conservation project.
We're working on some low-hanging fruit. It's easy for us to cut up these little vinyl fence markers and go put them on fence. That's addressing the threat of sage grouse collisions. What's really important is that you're doing these projects and these kind of things in areas where you know you have sage grouse, and you're most likely to have a direct benefit for the time, the money invested in those kind of things.
And that is where the state and county plans hope to start, where there are sage grouse, and then addressing the specific threats in any particular area. For the county seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
Thank you, Derek, for the update on sage grouse. If you have been sleeping under a rock for 20 years and you don't know about it, now you're up to speed. Now we will go forward after this commercial break and talk about the box elder plan in specific and find out what its intended impacts might be. Stay with us. We'll be back with the county seat.
The best part about raising children here in Vernal and the Uinta Basin is just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody.
It's not too big, it's not too small. We're close to the Wasatch Front if there's anything we need out there.
The support is unbelievable. Even though you don't have a kid playing high school football, you go to Friday night football.
My job has offered me the ability to college educate all three of my children.
My father, he was an engineer for Chevron, retired 39 some odd years. And Jeff, my husband, it's the same way. He's always worked in the oil and gas, always had a job here.
It's a wonderful place to play because there's a lot of variety between hunting, fishing.
And the beautiful mountains, and Flaming Gorge is just a short distance away.
One of the big reasons why I live where I live is I'm able to run up to a beautiful place like this and spend some good quality time.
There's always plenty to do in Uinta County.
So, what brings you to town?
What brings anyone to St. George? A couple rounds of golf, a little relaxation.
What is that all?
Is there more? In a retirement community? Should have stuck with the back nine.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is sage grouse and a plan to manage them so they don't become an endangered species. Joining us for the conversation, Kevin Carter, who is the director of the School Institutional Trust Lands for Utah, Juan Palma, who's the director of the BLM in Utah, and Box Elder County Commissioner Luann Adams. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Who was at the table for this box elder plan? As the group worked together, what did the group consist of?
We brought all the entities together, and we're going to ask for their help in enhancing the habitat area and helping us to grow the bird. We will do anything we can to make it so that it's not listed.
We have thousands of acres within the area that the plan encompasses, and so we had people there involved trying to understand and suggest things that could help in the management of the species.
And you also had representatives.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me thank Luann, Commissioner Adams, for organizing this event that kicked off the activities, which means that we all are working together. The BLM on our side, we have lots of acres of land in Box Elder County, of which many of those are habitat for sage grouse. Our goal, not only in Box Elder County from the BLM side, but the whole state of Utah, is to be able to do activities that could help the sage grouse not be listed. That's our ultimate goal, is for us to all work together to do that.
while we're doing that, we're looking for all kinds of projects that we can do, and Box Elder County will be one of the first areas that we're going to look at what projects can we do that will enhance the habitat for sage grouse, that can help improve the habitat, and by so doing, we'll be able to, as Commissioner said, be able to have more sage grouse or grow more sage grouse.
We've got state agencies that have land, we've got the county, we've got the BLM. How important is this private sector to this whole process?
There's a large component of private land within the boundary of the sage grouse management area in northwestern Box Elder County. A lot of private farmland, ranch land up in that area, a lot of school trust land, a lot of public land. Intermingled, absolutely potpourri in the way that it's intermingled. And so there is an obligation and need to work together, because no single landowner or private landowner can make a plan work. It's got to be a joint effort.
I think everyone wants to be good stewards of the land and improve the resources, and that's what we're trying to do. And when you improve your resources, you're going to improve the habitat for these sage grouse. And what we've done is we started with our local working group, and they identified threats. And they've identified threats like 12 years ago, and we've worked and monitored with USU and also Division of Wildlife Services. So we've been working there for a long time, and we feel that's a great place because we know what's on the ground.
What would a listing do to the county?
Well, it would close down Box Elder County, basically. Ranching is the operation in western Box Elder County, and that's all there is. Every little community out there would dry up without that. And like was discussed earlier, we're checkerboarded out there. We have SITLA and private and BLM, and it's all checkerboarded, the property is. So a listing would basically shut down western Box Elder County.
This is one of the most significant impacts, whether you are rural or urban, across the state of Utah. And this is a big topic, and we will discuss it in more detail here on the county seat. Make sure that you take notes on this. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Carbon County is typically known for its industry and coal production, but that is not all. Utah's Castle Country has something for everyone. It is the home of the nationally recognized North Springs Shooting Range. North Springs provides gun hobbyists and professionals a practice and training facility that is second to none. Visit castlecountry.com for more information.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is the greater sage grouse, its impacts on the state of Utah, and a pilot program that Box Elder County has adopted and are going to incorporate to manage the sage grouse to expand their population. We have state agencies and federal agencies involved in that process. I want to start with you, Director Palma, in this break. We have all made it very clear that we do not want an endangered species listing on the greater sage grouse. What would what kind of impact, what would the management landscape, if you will, of the BLM look like if that were to take place?
You're right, Ted. We definitely, from all of our perspective, all the partners here, we would like to do everything we can to prevent the listing of the sage grouse. And we're doing everything we can, not only in our planning, but our implementation as well. Should this be listed, here's some of the consequences to all of us, and specifically to the BLM, is that currently right now will have an impact to our oil and gas operations. It will have an impact to all of the activities that we do, including mining, grazing, and many, many other activities. We would have to consult on every project with the Fish and Wildlife Service so that get their approval on any project we wanted to do. Not only would it extend the time of the projects to get them approved, but it would also, in some cases, many cases, probably would not allow us to list those projects or to do those projects. And so the impact to the operations of the BLM would be tremendous, both in time, but also in the kinds of projects that we could approve.
Kevin, how important is that private landowner to SITLA?
Well, very important, and one of the things that I think is ironic is that a listing of this species might impact the very management that's making this Box Elder County population one of the most robust. You know, whatever the private landowners are doing out there in that area right now is working. I mean, you've got robust, strong populations. This is a very important population because it serves as a corridor for Nevada and Idaho, much larger populations, and this serves as a corridor that connects them. And so it's an important area for the species.
It impacts Box Elder County, Elko County, Nevada, and Cassia County, Idaho, and we're working with those partners too. As well as we're working with SITLA, and with BLM we're coordinating and cooperators, and so we've been at the table, you know, with discussion and giving our input as they're designing their plan, which is required for them to do.
So, Juan, from your standpoint, because they're targeting things that are easily manageable and conducive with the economic engine of the county, you think this approach is a viable approach as a model for others? Is that you've got a list of 12 or 13 impacts, and if you can target 5 or 6 that won't upset a local economic engine, that's the way to go?
To me, any action that we do that improves habitat is good. So any action we do that, action that we do that would mitigate the threats to sage grouse, whether they be from other predators, is good. So all of the components that the Box Elder County folks are talking about, if all of those things put together, no matter how small, no matter how big we do them, it will have an impact on us being able to sustain the population of sage grouse in Box Elder County. And that's really what we want. We want to be able to sustain those populations in Box Elder County. We want to be able to really do more actions as relates to fire. Fire is a critical threat to sage grouse because without the habitat, no matter how many birds you have, you destroy the habitat, they just won't be there. We need a variety of habitat across the landscape, and that's what we, the BLM, are working on to be able to do that.
It seems to me that the predation is going to be one of the most unpopular with the environmental groups to address as one of the key targets that you looked at in this plan. I already know from the Tribune article that was the highlight that they wanted to point on, that you're actually going to go out and control raven populations and poison them to improve sage grouse when they would much rather have you just take cows off the land.
There's no evidence that taking cows off the land would help. The likelier scenario is that it would hinder the situation. There's dramatic evidence that ravens are predators towards sage grouse. Whether or not going out there and shooting them or poisoning them or doing something to remove them is the best solution, that'll leave that for the biologist to figure out. I'm frankly much more concerned about catastrophic wildfire. I think that is a much greater threat, not just to the immediate success of the bird, but long term, because when the fire comes through, you'll destroy the habitat that Director Palma talked about, both the winter, leks, everything else. And what's likely to come in is exotic annuals, which is not food for anything practically out there. And so not only will you destroy immediately the habitat, but it won't come back for a long time. And you have to spend a lot of money to bring it back.
And that is our number 1 threat, is fire. Out in that area, lightning fires are what causes most of them. And I think all 3 of us serve on another committee, a working group that was put together by the governor, and that's the Catastrophic Wildfire Committee. And we're coming up with strategies and ideas on cooperation, working with all the entities to try to reduce the catastrophic wildfires. We're also looking at the nesting areas of doing green strip projects. We've done a little, and we want to keep going on that. And something interesting that I find about the green strip is they use what they call forage kochia on it, and the biologists have looked at that with the bird and found out that the bird eats it. So we're hoping that that'll help with the winter habitat as well as the sagebrush.
Were there differences of opinion about how you should go?
I don't know. I think we were all committed to doing what we needed to do to keep the species from being listed. I think from that standpoint there was agreement and desire to work together. We all have different constituencies that we answer to, and so we have to address it differently. But I think the end result we're all on board with.
I think the difference of opinion that we may have is that, rightfully so, local ranchers are more interested in the action. What can I do right now? And when you look at some of the, say, Fish and Wildlife Service, I want to speak for them, but they really want it codified in some plan. They want it codified in some document. And versus, the action right now. Can I go mark that fence? Can I go take care of ravens? Can I go take care of something else? They view it as more positive to have a codification of some rule or process. They view that as higher in the priority.
Okay, well, that helps us understand a little bit of things. We'll take a break here on the county seat. When we come back, we want to point our attention to how this can be used as a model for other counties and your thoughts on that. Stay with us. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, SITLA, manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of providing financial support to further the education of Utah's students, while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, the School Land Trust Program will distribute nearly $37 million to Utah's schools this year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
In San Rafael country, you'll discover more adventure and excitement than you can imagine. And it's only 2 hours from the Wasatch Front. Find gorges that descend thousands of feet, trails that go on forever, and the solitude of finding a place all your own. Emery County and the San Rafael Swell. We're closer than you think.
Rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
Welcome back to the county seat. Today we are talking about sage grouse, a plan that Box Elder County is piloting right now to grow the population and still be respective of the local industry and economy. Luann, from your standpoint, you said this was just like a movement. It was working uphill towards the state plan?
Well, the information that they got from the state plan is that first they started with the local working groups, and there's 11 sage grouse management areas, and they took information from the local working groups and then implemented it. That's the one thing that the counties are doing, is implementing that into their plan, and then the state plan implements them. And so the threats that we're talking about were a grassroots a plan that they originated with. And that's why I think it's successful.
And I think the state plan is absolutely dependent upon counties adopting county plans to implement the things that the state plan envisions, because otherwise there's really no follow-through. It's the county plans that are the follow-through for the state plan.
Now, Kevin, your portfolio, much like Juan's, it puts lands all the way across the state. Will all these management plans be the same, or are the impacts and the local aspects of economy that they're trying to protect different?
Well, certainly they're different, but the threats are different too. I think that's the thing that's one of the wise parts about the plan, is that it allows each of the local working groups to enumerate their threats and their needs in order to recover the species. So from that standpoint, it's very broad and encompassing.
Do you have a chance to talk with directors in the other states about this issue?
I do. Certainly Wyoming has been on the forefront of this issue for quite some time, sage grouse. They have a lot of oil and gas operations. So I would say that Wyoming has been a little bit on the forefront. We certainly have tried to pattern what we've done here in Utah after Wyoming. And I can say that because there's about 50%, roughly 50% of the sage grouse habitat is in private land, and about 50% is on land like BLM lands. It is really important that all of us be at the table. We just simply cannot solve this problem in and of ourselves. While we, the BLM lands, can contribute and should contribute to the habitat and to the recovery of sage grouse here in Utah, we can only do so much. And so it really is incumbent, and I'm really happy to see that Box Elder County is taking the lead on this effort, because we need them to take the lead on the private lands as well. 50% and 50% will make us be successful at the end of the day.
Any words for other counties that still have to adopt a plan? Any shortcuts for them, or you know?
Well, you know, I think they need to take an area. The reason we think that the Grouse Creek area is the best is because we've monitored it for over 12 years. We know what the baseline is with these birds, where they're at, and how they exist there. And so I would start with something that they know about, and then to look at the threats and see what they can do to minimize these threats. So I think that's where they need to go from. And then after that, I think we need to continue monitoring. We're working with USU all the time to get additional information.
But we have a pretty short timeline. I mean, we have to have a plan in place by 2015. Are we going to make that timeline?
Well, we certainly, from the BLM, we got a lot of staff working on this. And we are working very hard on this regional approach, this planning process. We have full intentions of making that goal by the end of 2014, putting forth a plan from the BLM side.
Well, thank you all for joining us for this conversation today. It's been a very good conversation. You can go to our website for links to both SITLA and the BLM. Thank you for joining us. We invite you to tune in next week on The County Seat, or check us out on our website, thecountyseat.tv. Remember, government happens at the local level. It's where your life takes place. We'll see you next week.